guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for dropping by my channel. Today's video is going to be my first trimester recap, so everything that I went through, how I dealt with it, must-haves, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, my dog's laying beside me, so if you hear him snoring, that's why, because he's just like passed out beside me. Oh, they're so cute. So firstly, I just want to say, this is just my experience, like how I felt, like what I went through, kind of how I dealt. So if you experience something different, or you are experiencing something different, or like you don't feel necessarily how I feel, don't freak out. Like, it's no big deal. Everybody's different. All women experience pregnancy differently. But yeah, this is just how I personally felt and how I dealt with stuff. For those of you who are maybe like a little bit more shy and reserved, I'm an open book, so I will like literally share everything with you guys, even if it's maybe like TMI. So if you're like grossed out by bodily functions or like scientifically correct terms, maybe just like, you know, click out. So right now I am 16 weeks and 3 days. So I've been out of the first trimester and into the second for about 3 weeks now. And I gotta say, the second trimester for me is so much better than the first. Like a world of difference, like hands down, so much better. So I guess like the first like thing I should talk about kind of is like the first early symptoms that kind of should have told me that I was pregnant, but didn't. I found out that I was pregnant from my doctor. She called me and let me know. I did my first video on how I found out I was pregnant. I'll link it down below. And yeah, so some of the earlier things that happened that could have indicated that I've been pregnant was that I was having like period symptoms when I should have had my period, but I wasn't getting my period. So I had like sore back, really sore boobs. I was pretty tired. One of the earlier things that happened was, and again, this is really TMI, this was one of the kind of like the first things. I was kind of feeling upset to my stomach and I wasn't having solid bowel movements for like a month. It was awful. I guess not all women get that, but it is fairly common, especially in like the first couple of weeks. The extreme exhaustion that I was having was like out of this world. I was like falling asleep on the couch at like 6 p.m. every night, and I'd have to be like moved to our bed and stuff. I had like zero energy to do anything. I was just zonked. All I wanted to do was like snuggle my puppies and just sleep in. I would wake up in the morning and I would just want to go back to bed like 5 minutes later. Like, I didn't want to do anything. I had zero energy. Probably my biggest, most annoying and horrible symptom that I had in my first trimester, and it's pretty common, is morning sickness. I was so sick. That term is so misleading. Like, it's super annoying. If it was just in the morning, you know what, like I could probably deal with it, but this was around the clock. I felt like I was going to throw up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep. And even when I was sleeping, like I was not sleeping properly because like I knew I felt sick. Before I even found out I was pregnant, my dad made this like really delicious meal that like I really love. It's spaghetti squash with like bolognese sauce and then like baked cheese on top. It's so good. I could really go for some of that right now. But at the time, I couldn't even look at it. Like I wanted to throw up like thinking about it. Luckily it didn't like stick with me, but yeah, it was just, I didn't want anything. Another one that I had early on, and it kind of lasted like throughout the first trimester, that was really crappy, was a heightened sense of smell. I could smell stuff from like a mile away. Good smell, bad smell, didn't matter. But definitely like the heightened sense of smell caused like aversions to like certain foods. Actually just like aversions to things. It's super weird, but like my couch and the throw pillow that was on my couch, I had like smell aversions to it. The pillow smelled like mothballs and like soap, and it just, ugh, even thinking about it makes me feel like icky now. but it was disgusting. And then the couch, like every time I sat on it or laid on it, I felt like I was gonna throw up because it smelled like almost like musty. We just moved to this house just before we found out that we were gonna have the baby. And our stuff had been in storage at my mom and dad's house. So my couch had been in my mom and dad's basement, which isn't like particularly musty, but I don't know. I guess just like my heightened sense of smell made it just awful to sit on the couch. Like I didn't even want to spend time in my living room. It was so gross. And nobody else noticed. Like I asked my fiance, like, does this smell? I asked my mom, does this smell? And they were all like, no, you're totally crazy. So just me. Another one that was super persistent throughout my first trimester, and it's still kind of like going on now, is having to pee like all the time around the clock. Yeah, that's a fun one. And throughout the night, like I never would get up before to like go to the bathroom. I would never have to do that. In my first trimester, I just like had to pee all the time. It would wake me up and I'd go to the bathroom during the night, which was so weird and new for me. Around 5 or 6 weeks, I started to get like what I just found out was ligament pain. The way that I would describe it is almost like a pulling or a cramping in my lower, like right above my pelvis, or like where my hip bones sit, like under there. It's exactly where your like uterus would sit. But yeah, apparently it's like ligament pain. That's what the doctor told me recently, because your ligaments are like being stretched and pulled for like your uterus growing and trying to like make room for a growing baby. And so it was like any fast movement, if I would like cough or laugh or like sit up too quickly or stand up too quickly, almost like a stabbing pain in like my lower abdomen. Early on I had like really bad cramping, especially like up in my like upper left hand side, and the doctor told me that's caused by your cells fusing, and like when the baby's like just an embryo, when it's attaching to your wall, it can be really painful. And so that's what like the cramping was. Another like common symptom that I got that other women tend to get is a funny metallic taste in my mouth. However, mine was a little different. It wasn't really a metallic taste. It was kind of more like, don't judge because we live in like Canada and it's legal here, but it tasted like I had just eaten fresh like hemp or marijuana. It tasted literally like I had marijuana in my mouth and I was just like chewing on it all the time. And it would stay for about like an hour, then it would go away and it just kind of would come and go. Yeah, that one was really weird. I thought that one was kind of strange. And I'm not sure why it tasted a little different. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just like interpreting metallic taste wrong. One of the really super amazing fun symptoms that I got in my first trimester was really bad acne. My skin was so bad during the first trimester. I literally looked like I was 13 or 14 again. I had pimples everywhere. It was a mess. Even when I was like 13, my acne wasn't probably as bad as it was during my first trimester. Like back then I would just kind of get them like around my forehead or like around my hairline or maybe like a little bit on my chin. No, that was not the case. They were everywhere. It looked like I had like chicken pox all over my face, and they were painful too. It wasn't just like little pimples. Obviously like that's caused by like the increase in hormones. Another one that was caused by an increase in hormones, and this definitely wouldn't happen to everybody. I'm really susceptible to cold sores, so I carry like that virus. It started happening around the time that I hit puberty, so I was about 13 when I started getting them. And luckily when I was a little bit older, like I had them probably maybe once a month or once every 2 months for probably like 5 years, so I was maybe like 17 or so. And then they kind of just tapered out. Like now, or before I was pregnant, I would only get a cold sore if I was like getting really sick or just like out of the blue, kind of like once a year, which was, I mean, it's still not fun, but it was better than having them once a month. But when I got pregnant, I was getting them like once every 2 weeks, and they would like pop up all the time and they were super painful. The doctor did tell me I was allowed to take my medication for that. I wasn't really sure if I should, being pregnant, and it kind of made me uncomfortable because it's a really strong medication. I ended up not taking them because my mom was like, well, I'll make you a little homemade remedy because she's so sweet. And it was just coconut oil, vitamin E, and tea tree oil. And it actually ended up working really well. So if that's something you struggle with either during pregnancy or just like you get cold sores, maybe try this like little remedy. It really did like kind of stop it in its tracks. Not as quickly as the medicine did, but it was like maybe 2 days or 3 days that I'd have like the beginning stages and then they just go away. It really, really helped. Ugh. There's something in my eye. That's your hair. That's your hair in mommy's eye. Classic pregnancy symptom, emotional. I was super sensitive in my first trimester. I mean, at the time I was experiencing like a lot of anxiety, so that probably played on it a little, but even just like over silly stuff. For instance, Disney Plus came out just as I got pregnant, and I mean, that was great. However, I'd never seen Pocahontas, and I was like, I gotta see this movie. And I watched it, and at the end of it, spoiler alert, sorry if you haven't seen it, but at the end when Pocahontas sends John Smith back to England because he's sick, and they didn't get to be together. That was so heartbreaking. I just like sobbed my eyes out. I went downstairs and I just started crying. And Brent, my fiance, was like, oh my god, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just watched Pocahontas. He's like, okay. I'm like, they don't even get to be together at the end. It's horrible. I mean, that's a pretty good example of how sensitive and emotional I was. Another pretty common symptom was like not being able to sleep through the night. I'd wake up either from feeling anxious or like wake up from like a very vivid dream. Oh, that's another one. I had some weird ass dreams in my first trimester. I've always been a very vivid dreamer, but usually my dreams make sense, and these didn't. They were just like all over the place. They were super weird. Okay, one of the weird ones, and probably a little TMI, was having itchy nipples. Super weird, but like my nipples were super itchy. I also noticed they like got darker and it got a little bigger, and yeah. Shortness of breath, racing heart, going up the stairs is like, whew, it's a lot of work. Towards the end and into like the second a little bit, I started to get like kind of dizzy and lightheaded. There were a couple of times where I felt like I was gonna pass out or like throw up because I felt like really nauseous and just like the world was collapsing around me. Kind of got like tunnel vision. It only happened twice, and apparently it's because of like the increased blood flow that you have in your body. I don't know, it wasn't fun though, and I'm really hoping that that is over, because one time it almost happened at work, and one time it almost happened at Walmart. So yeah, not fun. Another TMI one, vaginal cramps. Real fun. It was actually Christmas Eve the first time this happened, and it really freaked me out. It really worried me because I'd never heard of this happening before, but I was getting almost like shooting pains like up from the bottom of my vagina into my cervix. It was really painful, and like if you don't know what's going on, it can be like really weird. And like the internet, because that's where I went because it was Christmas Eve, was like, it's pretty normal, like don't worry about it too much. When I saw my doctor, she later informed me that it turns out that it's my baby taking advantage of all that space he's got in there, or she's got in there, we don't know what it is yet, taking advantage of all that space and using the bottom of my uterus as a trampoline. So yeah, my baby is just like bouncing up and down on my cervix, and that's why I was getting that like shooting pain. It kind of concerns me because if it hurts that bad at like only 11 weeks when your baby is like the size of an apricot, how bad is it gonna hurt when your baby is the size of a baby and like gives you a good, hiya, right in there, in that direction. Something to look forward to, I guess. Anyway, another one that kind of started happening towards the end of the first trimester and continued on into the second was headaches. I never get headaches, so this was a hard one for me. And that started around like 11 weeks and it's continued into now. So I guess I'll give you guys like a little bump update or like introduction, since I haven't done that yet. I haven't actually gained anything. I'm 16 weeks and 3 days, like I said, and I haven't gained a single pound. At least that's what they told me at my 14-week, I think it was 14-week appointment. I actually lost 10 pounds in my first trimester. I wasn't throwing up, but I was so sick and nauseous that I could barely eat anything. Right now, it kind of just looks like I've had a couple too many burritos. I've never really before been like the skinny type. I've never been like really large or anything. I've always kind of had a bit of like a Buddha belly. So going into this, like I had a bit of a rounder belly and like curvier shape to my body anyway. And also my stomach is like naturally pushed out just because I have a tilted uterus, which doesn't affect my pregnancy at all, but it does push out my stomach like a little bit. So no matter how skinny I get or how much weight I lose, I'll likely always have like a bit of a round belly anyway. So right now I'm, like I said, I'm 16 weeks and 3 days. So that's the belly. There it is. And yeah, I do notice that it's like rounder at the top more than it used to be. So yeah, that's my little bump baby. Yeah, those are like my symptoms and like how I kind of felt. Yeah, I think I'm gonna make another video about like how I dealt with the symptoms, like must-haves, that kind of thing. But that's kind of like the recap on how the first trimester went. And yeah. So thank you so much for watching. I will link that description down below for how I found out I was pregnant if you guys are interested in that. But yeah, thanks so much for watching.